The wind howled across the barren desert of Tarkus 4, carrying with it fine red dust that scratched against Elias Kane's cracked visor. His scout ship, the Horizon Light, was a mangled wreck a few kilometers back, half buried in sand, smoke rising in slow spirals into the dusty sky. Elias staggered across the open plain, each step more painful than the last. His left leg throbbed with a sharp, unyielding pain from the crash, and his right arm hung at an awkward angle, a reminder of the metal beam that had crushed it inside the ship. For hours, he had crawled and limped, searching for shelter, water, anything that could keep him alive. Tarkus 4 had been marked as uninhabited in old star maps, abandoned long ago after the collapse of the alien civilization that once thrived here. Rumors of strange ruins had reached human explorers decades ago, but none had stayed long enough to report their discoveries. Elias never planned to explore the planet. The storm had forced him down, and now survival was the only thing that mattered. Ahead, through the haze of red dust, something shimmered. Angular shapes rose from the sand, half hidden beneath centuries of erosion. At first, Elias thought it was an optical illusion, a trick of the wind, but as he approached, the shapes resolved into ruins, enormous alien structures that seemed both broken and alive. The buildings were massive, made of smooth black alloy that reflected the dim sun like dark mirrors. The architecture was unlike anything humans had seen. The edges curved in impossible angles, and strange symbols glowed faintly along walls, pulsing with a soft blue light. Elias slowed, each step cautious. The ruins were silent, but they radiated an energy that prickled his skin. His instincts, honed by years of survival training, told him to keep moving carefully. He could hear the distant creak of shifting metal, the soft hum of something beneath the sand. And despite his pain, his curiosity burned. This place, something's alive here, he whispered to himself. He found a partial doorway leading into a massive chamber, the ceiling arched high above, supported by alien pillars carved with undecipherable markings. Broken machinery and scattered debris littered the floor. The air was cold and dry, but the hum of power made the place feel electric, almost alive. Elias leaned against a pillar to catch his breath. His leg screamed, his arm throbbed, but his mind was sharper than ever. Survival demanded awareness. As he explored, his foot struck something hard beneath the sand. He bent down and brushed away layers of dust. A metal panel emerged, engraved with glowing symbols. When he pressed his fingers against it, the panel shuddered and slid open. A cold gust of air escaped from within, carrying the scent of something ancient, metallic yet strangely alive. Elias froze. The panel revealed a massive chamber hidden beneath the ruins. At the center of the room lay a warship, unlike any human vessel. Its hull was smooth and black with sharp angular lines, almost like a predator waiting beneath the sand. Blue lights ran along its surface, pulsing rhythmically as if it had a heartbeat. Elias's heart raced. His mind ran 1,000 questions at once. Who built this? Why was it buried here? And most importantly, was it alive? He stepped closer, his movements careful but cautious. He felt a faint vibration under his boots, and a deep hum resonated through the floor. The ship seemed to respond to his presence, its lights flickering and scanning. His pulse quickened, but he forced himself to stay calm. He raised his hand, brushing against the hull. The surface was cold, smooth, and unnervingly responsive. Small panels shifted beneath his fingers, revealing ports and strange controls. Symbols flashed as if trying to communicate, but Elias had no frame of reference. It was alien in every sense, and then it happened. A sudden surge of light erupted from the ship. Blue beams shot upward, scanning the ruins. Panels along the hull rotated and opened, revealing what looked like a cockpit glowing with alien interfaces. Elias stumbled back, his body trembling. The ship's AI, or whatever controlled it, was awake. The chamber vibrated as a low voice echoed in his mind. It wasn't words he could understand, but images and emotions flowed directly into him. Curiosity, caution, recognition. The ship had sensed him. Elias swallowed hard. He knew he had triggered something powerful and dangerous. Yet despite the fear, he felt awe. This was no ordinary warship. It was a relic of a civilization that had once dominated the stars, a weapon of unimaginable power. And now it was aware of him. He stepped closer again, drawn by a mixture of fear and fascination. The lights on the ship pulsed faster, almost like it was breathing. A panel extended, forming a shape he could sit in. Tentatively, he climbed inside, ignoring the pain in his leg. The controls responded immediately to his presence. Symbols shifted into patterns, some of which he instinctively understood. It was unlike anything he had ever piloted. Every motion of his hand produced results as if the ship was learning from him. Yet the underlying intelligence was unmistakable. The ship was sentient, and it was deciding whether he was friend or foe. Hours passed as Elias explored the ship's systems. Despite being wounded, exhausted, and unsure, he found that human intuition, trial, error, and persistence allowed him to understand more than he ever thought possible. Buttons, levers, holographic panels, they responded to him in ways he could predict. The ship wasn't just a machine. It was a partner testing his capabilities. Finally, a calm settled over the chamber. The lights dimmed slightly and the AI seemed to accept him. Elias exhaled, leaning back in the cockpit. He was safe for now, and yet he knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere beyond the desert he could feel it. The galaxy was bigger than he had imagined, and this warship, buried and forgotten, had just awoken because of him. He was no longer just a survivor of a crash. He was the key to something far greater, something that could change the fate of humanity forever. The hum of the warship filled the cavern beneath the ruins, a deep, steady rhythm that resonated through Elias Kane's bones. Outside, the desert winds continued to whip against the ruined city, carrying fine red dust into every crevice. But inside, Elias felt a strange calm. The ship's AI, whatever it was, had accepted his presence, yet calm did not mean safe. Elias' mind raced. He had survived the crash, stumbled into the ruins, and awakened a powerful alien warship, but he didn't know its full capabilities or whether it would consider him a friend or a threat. He pushed aside the panic and focused on something he understood: survival. The first step was to explore the ship carefully. The cockpit, if it could even be called that, was unlike anything human engineers had designed. Smooth surfaces curved in impossible ways. Glowing panels hovered in midair and symbols shifted constantly as though alive. Elias reached out, instinctively touching a glowing panel. Immediately, a holographic map of the surrounding area appeared. Mountains, valleys, and the scattered ruins glowed in blue, while tiny symbols moved across the desert like ants on a vast plain. Elias frowned. "Ants," he muttered. Then he realized the symbols weren't insects, they were scanning signals. Something was moving in the desert. He tapped another panel. A three-dimensional figure of the warship rose from the deck, rotating slowly. Its alien design was terrifying and beautiful. Multiple wings or fins extended from the hull, but the lines were sharp, precise, and elegant. Weapons bays were visible, but they weren't just guns. They looked like energy conduits capable of channeling immense power. Elias swallowed hard. He was sitting in a weapon of unimaginable destruction. If he misused it, an entire planet or more could be destroyed. A vibration beneath his seat made him jump. The ship was alive. Elias could sense it. And then came the voice, not words, not sounds, but thoughts, feelings flowing directly into his mind. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Elias froze. He had expected alarms, lights, maybe robotic drones, but this was something entirely different. His heart raced, but he forced himself to respond. "I am Elias Kane. I survived a crash. I mean, no harm." The AI pulsed in response, a soft blue glow washing over the cockpit. The meaning was clear. The ship was curious. It had not encountered humans before, or at least not recently. Its ancient systems had waited, buried for centuries, and now it had awakened because of him. Elias took a deep breath. I need to survive. Can you help me?" There was a pause, and then the ship seemed to guide him. Panels shifted and a series of symbols lit up. Elias studied them, moving his hand experimentally. The controls responded immediately. Levers, buttons, and floating panels moved with his touch, translating his intentions into actions. He realized the ship was teaching him, or at least adapting to his instincts. Hours passed in a blur. Elias learned to move the ship's systems, understanding energy readings, navigation controls, and defensive protocols. He discovered that the ship could cloak itself, lift off silently, and scan vast areas for life forms or technology. Its weapons were locked, but the hum of dormant energy channels told him that the firepower was enormous. Then the movement outside caught his attention. Symbols on the holographic map indicated activity, small, fast-moving shapes approaching the ruins. Elias squinted at the display. "Scouts. Alien scouts," he muttered. He had been so absorbed with the ship that he had forgotten Tarkus 4 wasn't completely empty. Whatever civilization had built this warship might have left defenses or predators. And now something had noticed the ruins had become active again. The hum of the ship changed, pulsing faster. The AI was alert. Elias realized that the ship could sense the scouts too, and it was preparing for their arrival. He hesitated. Should he confront them or hide? His survival instincts won. Hiding wouldn't help. And besides, the scouts might recognize him as human and attack anyway. He tapped a sequence on the control panel, and the ship's sensors expanded, locking onto the approaching units. Symbols on the map transformed into readouts he could understand. Speed, size, energy signatures. The scouts were small, fast, and highly maneuverable. They were designed for reconnaissance, but they carried weapons capable of crippling a human vessel easily. Elias's pulse quickened. He had no weapons of his own. Not yet then an idea struck him. The ship was alive. It could react. Perhaps he didn't need to fight the scouts directly. He just needed to guide the ship wisely. He pressed his hands against the glowing console. Energy flowed beneath his fingertips, intuitive and powerful. The ship responded, tilting slightly as if preparing to move. The scouts were almost upon him. Suddenly the ship's AI projected something into his mind. Trust. Use your instincts. Elias nodded, even though the AI couldn't see him. He followed the feeling, not the readings. He initiated a movement the scouts did not anticipate. The ship lifted silently from the buried chamber, carrying him upward. Dust and debris fell away, and the desert sun glinted off the black hull. The scouts opened fire. Beams of energy streaked toward him, cutting through sand and rock. But the ship moved with uncanny speed and precision. It twisted and rotated in ways that human pilots couldn't imagine, dodging the attacks with instinctual grace. Elias marveled. This was no longer just a machine. It was a partner, reacting to his decisions while anticipating threats on its own. Using the ship's energy pulses, Elias sent a wave of force through the desert, knocking several scouts off balance. They skidded across the sand, unable to track him. Others retreated, perhaps recognizing the warship's superior power. Elias realized then that the legends of this warship's might were not exaggerations. It was a force unlike anything humanity had faced before. But as exhilaration rose, fear crept back. This was only the scouts. The AI's glowing pulses suggested something far larger. Far more dangerous was waiting somewhere beyond the desert. Elias had no idea what it could be. He focused on survival, guiding the ship through the ruins, testing the limits of its systems. As he moved, he realized he could communicate with it in a way. Not words, not spoken language, thoughts, gestures, instincts. The AI understood his intentions. He could feel its calculations, its predictions, its awareness of the scouts, and his mind adapted to it. By sunset, Elias had explored most of the buried warship's accessible systems. He discovered defensive shields, propulsion mechanisms, and even a limited weapon interface, though he had not yet armed it. He realized something profound. He could command this vessel, but it would never let him act recklessly. The AI was cautious, just as he was. Together, they were stronger than either alone. Elias leaned back in the cockpit chair, wincing as pain radiated from his broken arm and leg. He allowed himself a moment of relief. He had survived the crash, awakened an alien warship, and fended off hostile scouts. Against all odds, humanity, his courage, his instincts had made the difference, and yet, a nagging thought lingered. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was far larger than the desert before him. If a scout patrol had survived for centuries on this desolate planet, what else might exist beyond the stars? What forces had built this warship, and why had it been buried for so long? The AI's pulses seemed to echo his thoughts. It had questions too. Questions about the human species it had never encountered. Questions about what this fragile, wounded creature could accomplish. Elias closed his eyes briefly, imagining the universe beyond Tarkus 4. He pictured the distant stars, human colonies, and the possibility of other alien civilizations, and he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. He was no longer just a survivor. He was a human who had awakened power that even advanced alien civilizations had feared. And if he could learn, adapt, and think creatively, if he could trust his instincts, he might just be able to use this warship to protect humanity, and perhaps even change the fate of the stars. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the desert in shades of blood red and gold. The warship pulsed softly beneath him, alive and waiting. Elias Kane knew the first step was over. But the next step, the real journey, was just beginning. The desert of Tarkus IV stretched endlessly beneath the dim glow of the twin moons, painting the ruins in silvery light. Elias Kane stood on the bridge of the alien warship, still wincing from the pain in his leg and arm. The scouts were gone, but the memory of their rapid attacks lingered in his mind. He knew now that Tarkus IV was not a safe place, and that awakening the warship had stirred more than just curiosity. The alien AI pulsed around him, an almost tangible presence. It communicated not with words, but with images, feelings, and concepts. Elias had learned to interpret its signals, and now the flow of information was clearer than ever. "There is a fleet," the AI conveyed, images flashing through his mind. Sleek black ships moving with precision. They were not Tarkus IV's scouts. They were larger, older, and armed for war. Elias's heart sank. He understood immediately. This fleet had survived centuries, hidden somewhere beyond the desert, perhaps in orbit or on another nearby planet. If they reached human colonies unchallenged, the destruction would be catastrophic. "We can't let them reach the colonies," he said aloud. Even though the AI didn't require speech, it pulsed in acknowledgement, sending streams of data and control panels into the holographic displays around him. The warship was immense, far larger than any human vessel Elias had ever seen. Its engines, though dormant for centuries, could traverse planetary atmospheres and interstellar space. The weapons arrays were sophisticated, capable of firing devastating energy blasts, launching drones, and even projecting defensive shields that could withstand entire fleet attacks. Yet Elias knew something crucial. He could not simply press a button and destroy the enemy. He lacked knowledge of their tactics, and the AI's guidance, while helpful, could not predict human unpredictability or improvisation. This was where his species' strength lay. "All right," he muttered, rubbing his sore arm. "Let's see what we can do." He began to interface with the ship, exploring its complex systems. Energy conduits pulsed beneath his fingertips, and holographic projections showed the surrounding star systems. He could see several planets in the sector, and the AI highlighted one in particular. A small Earth-like colony under threat. Human lives were at stake. Elias felt a surge of determination. Despite his injuries, he had faced danger and survived. Now he had the opportunity to do something far greater, to protect humanity using this incredible alien power. "We move silently," the AI conveyed. "We strike before they are aware." Elias nodded. He had learned to trust the AI, but he knew one thing humans had over any alien machine: creativity. He began to devise a plan, combining the ship's abilities with strategies no alien would predict. He instructed the AI to cloak the warship completely, hiding it from sensors. Then he plotted a trajectory that would place them between the fleet and the human colony, using the terrain of nearby moons and asteroid belts to mask their approach. It was risky. One mistake and the fleet would detect them. But Elias's instincts were sharp. He guided the ship with care, feeling every pulse of energy, every vibration, every signal from the AI. Together they became a single entity, a blend of human ingenuity and alien precision. Hours passed in tense preparation. The stars stretched endlessly around them, silent witnesses to their mission. Finally, Elias reached the coordinates where the fleet had been last detected. The holographic display showed dozens of ships forming a tight formation. They were massive, armored, and heavily armed. Each vessel radiated energy that Elias could feel even through the warship's sensors. He took a deep breath. This was it, the first true test. "They are unaware of us," the AI sent. "Strike wisely." Elias nodded again, and his mind raced with possibilities. Direct confrontation would be suicide. Instead, he used the ship's energy projectors to create illusions, scattering false signals across the fleet's sensors. Alien ships turned, firing at phantoms that did not exist. Confusion rippled through their formation. Elias smiled. This was the advantage humans had, the ability to think in unpredictable ways, to improvise when logic failed. The AI responded, adjusting shields and propulsion in real time, learning from his tactics. Together they began to dismantle the enemy fleet piece by piece, targeting energy conduits, disabling engines, and creating openings for further attacks. Even so, the fleet was formidable. Some ships adapted to their tricks, detecting anomalies and returning fire. Beams of energy streaked through space, forcing Elias to maneuver the warship with precision. He leaned forward, sweat dripping from his brow, every movement deliberate, every decision critical. Then came the first direct strike. One of the enemy ships, larger than the others, unleashed a concentrated beam aimed straight at the warship. Elias's instincts kicked in. He activated the shields, but the energy still rattled the hull. Panels flickered, systems overloaded. For a moment, fear gripped him, but he pushed through. He adjusted the ship's angle, letting the beam glance off the surface, then countered with a pulse from the warship's energy arrays. The enemy ship shuddered and began to drift, disabled. Elias allowed himself a moment of triumph. The human mind had found a solution where even the alien fleet's algorithms had failed, and yet he knew this was only the beginning. More ships remained, and the fleet's commander, whatever it was, would soon understand that they faced an unprecedented opponent. Hours blurred into night as Elias continued the battle. Using clever maneuvers, unexpected energy bursts, and rapid improvisation, he dismantled the fleet's formation. The AI adapted to his tactics, learning to anticipate both his moves and the enemy's. It was a partnership unlike any other, a combination of human intuition and alien technology that no enemy could fully predict. By the time the first light of dawn touched the stars, the fleet was in retreat. The surviving ships scattered, leaving the colony safe for now. Elias sank into the cockpit seat, exhausted but exhilarated. He had done it. Against overwhelming odds, humanity, through his courage and quick thinking, had triumphed. The AI pulsed softly around him, almost contemplative. It had learned much from Elias, and Elias had learned much from it. Together they had proven that even a single human, armed with courage, creativity, and determination, could change the outcome of events that had seemed inevitable. Elias looked out at the stars, the first rays of light reflecting off the warship's black hull. He knew the galaxy was far larger than he had imagined. There would be other fleets, other threats, and countless challenges ahead. But he also knew something profound. Humanity had something no alien machine could replicate: imagination, courage, and the will to act in the face of impossible odds. He allowed himself a small smile. For the first time since the crash, he felt hope. Not just for himself, but for all of humanity. He had stumbled into the ruins wounded, alone, and desperate. Now he was part of something far greater, a force capable of standing against threats that had slept for centuries. The warship pulsed once more, a quiet affirmation. Elias Kane was no longer merely a survivor. He was a human capable of wielding the power of a forgotten civilization, guiding it with courage, intuition, and ingenuity. And the galaxy, vast, mysterious, and full of danger, was about to learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. As the ship hovered silently above the desert, Elias set his sights on the stars. The mission had begun, but it was only the first step. Ahead lay countless worlds, hidden enemies, and ancient powers that had lain dormant for millennia. And yet, for the first time, he felt ready. Whatever came next, humanity, through him, would face it head-on. And perhaps, just perhaps, they would prove that even in a galaxy of advanced alien civilizations, the human spirit could shine brighter than any weapon. The stars stretched endlessly before Elias Kane, each one a pinprick of light in the vast darkness of space. The alien warship glided silently through the void, its black hull reflecting distant starlight like a polished mirror. Elias had survived the scout attack and had bested the first fleet, but he knew that the galaxy held far greater threats. What he had faced so far was merely the prelude. He flexed his sore arm, wincing at the lingering pain from the crash. The warship's AI pulsed softly around him, aware of his discomfort, aware of every thought he had. Elias had learned to interpret its signals, and the bond between them had deepened. Where the AI could calculate, Elias could improvise. Where he had limitations, the AI's power compensated. Together they were unstoppable, but only if they trusted each other completely. Ahead, the sensors detected movement, something larger, faster, and more organized than the scattered fleets they had encountered before. An enormous armada loomed on the edge of the star system, black ships arranged in perfect formation. They were alien war machines, ancient and disciplined, and their presence radiated a threat that made Elias's pulse quicken. "We're not just dealing with scouts this time," he muttered. "This is a full-scale fleet." The AI pulsed in agreement, images of alien symbols and diagrams flashing across the cockpit. Elias studied them carefully. Each ship was heavily armed and shielded. They would not be fooled by simple illusions or minor energy pulses. This battle would require more than speed and stealth. It would require strategy, cunning, and creativity. Elias gritted his teeth. He had survived worse. He had to. Humanity depended on it. He began to plan. The fleet's formation was strong but rigid, a pattern based on precision and predictability. Humans, however, thrived on improvisation. Elias adjusted the ship's trajectory, using asteroid belts and debris fields to mask their approach. The AI adapted instantly, generating real-time simulations of potential outcomes, and allowing Elias to choose the one that maximized both stealth and effectiveness. As they drew closer, Elias realized that brute force would not win this battle. Even the warship's immense power could not obliterate the fleet without risk. So he relied on human ingenuity. Using the ship's cloaking systems, he split the energy signature, creating false projections of their location. The fleet reacted to the decoys, diverting weapons fire and altering formation. Elias smiled. Alien machines were brilliant but predictable in their rigidity. Human creativity could exploit their patterns. He then activated a new system the AI had revealed, drones designed for rapid strikes and reconnaissance. Unlike human ships, these drones could operate independently, but were guided by his commands and intuition. Elias launched them into the formation, sending false signals and creating chaos. Beams of energy flew in multiple directions, forcing the fleet to divide and respond to phantom threats. The fleet commander, a massive vessel at the center, adapted quickly. Energy shields flared, and hundreds of smaller ships moved in precise coordination, cutting off potential escape routes. Elias's heart pounded. He knew the fleet's advantage lay in their discipline and numbers. But humans had one weapon the aliens could not calculate: imagination. He recalled an old strategy from his military training: divide and confuse. Using the warship's energy manipulators, he created temporary gravitational distortions, altering the trajectory of asteroids and debris to strike at the enemy fleet. Ships scattered, colliding, or forced to maneuver unpredictably. The commander vessel struggled to maintain formation, energy shields faltering under unexpected impacts. Elias's confidence grew. The human mind, adaptable and inventive, could turn even the most disciplined alien formation into chaos. He guided the warship with precision, adjusting shields, energy outputs, and propulsion to maximize efficiency while minimizing risk. Each maneuver drew on his instincts, his experience, and his intuition. The AI pulsed, learning from him, adapting its responses and enhancing the effectiveness of every action. Hours passed in a blur of motion, energy beams, and calculated risk. Elias ducked instinctively as a nearby projection panel exploded, sending shards of holographic light across the cockpit. His arm ached, his leg burned, but he ignored the pain. Focus was survival, and survival demanded constant adaptation. Then came a critical moment. The commander vessel unleashed a concentrated energy pulse aimed directly at the warship. Elias knew that even a fraction of the beam could cripple them. Acting on instinct, he tilted the ship at a precise angle, using the pulse to ricochet against an asteroid belt, directing it away from critical systems. The maneuver was dangerous, and the AI's simulations had warned against it. But human intuition saw a solution the calculations missed. The pulse struck a nearby asteroid instead, shattering it into fragments that rained down on the alien fleet. Smaller ships were destroyed instantly. Others were forced into chaotic maneuvers. Elias grinned, feeling the thrill of victory tempered by caution. Humans could think in ways machines could not. They could improvise, adapt, and exploit the unexpected. The fleet began to retreat, battered and confused. Elias allowed the warship to follow, using careful energy projections to prevent their regrouping. One by one, enemy ships were disabled or destroyed, demonstrating the power of combining human creativity with alien technology. Yet victory did not bring relief. Elias knew the warship's capabilities were vast, but it was still a tool, a partner, not a replacement for human decision-making. The galaxy was full of unknown threats, and relying solely on brute force or alien systems would be fatal. He sat back, exhausted, watching the remnants of the fleet scatter. The AI pulsed around him, a silent acknowledgement of their success. Elias allowed himself a small smile. He had done it. Together, they had demonstrated that human ingenuity, courage, creativity, and adaptability was a force the galaxy could not ignore. But even in triumph, he felt the weight of responsibility. The colonies were safe for now, but there were countless worlds, countless fleets, and countless dangers yet to come. Elias had awakened an ancient weapon, but the galaxy would not remain silent. Challenges were inevitable, and each challenge would demand not only the warship's power but the unique strengths of humanity itself. He flexed his arm again, wincing but ignoring the pain. He had survived impossible odds before, and he would survive again. Humans were resourceful, courageous, and determined. That was their greatest strength, far beyond any technology or firepower. And in the endless expanse of space, that strength would shine brightly. Elias looked out at the stars, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The warship pulsed beneath him, alive and aware, but it relied on his decisions as much as he relied on its power. Together, they were a partnership, human intuition and alien technology fused into a single unstoppable force. He knew the battles ahead would be harder, more dangerous, and filled with uncertainty. But he also knew this. As long as humans could think, adapt, and act with courage, they could face any challenge the galaxy placed before them. And somewhere deep within the warship, the AI began to understand something profound about its human partner. Elias Kane was not just a survivor. He was a human, a species capable of turning impossible odds into victories, of creating solutions from chaos, and of wielding power responsibly. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for centuries, but Elias would prove that underestimation was a grave mistake. The warship lifted silently, gliding toward the next threat, carrying its human partner into the unknown. And for the first time in centuries, the stars seemed alive with possibility. Elias gritted his teeth and set his jaw. The mission was far from over, but for now he allowed himself a moment of triumph. Humanity had survived, adapted, and prevailed. And in the vast, dark expanse of space, that spark of ingenuity would not be extinguished. The warship glided silently through the black emptiness of space, its black hull reflecting the distant glow of distant stars. Elias Kane stood in the cockpit, his body still battered from the crash, the scout attacks, and the recent battles against the alien fleets. His arm and leg throbbed with pain, but his mind was sharper than ever. He had faced impossible odds before, but what awaited him now was the greatest challenge of all. A fleet unlike any other, commanded by an intelligence as cunning as it was ruthless. The AI pulsed around him almost like a heartbeat. They had tracked the alien fleet across the star system, and it had gathered hundreds of ships forming a massive armada. Each vessel radiated energy signatures far beyond those of the previous enemies. The stakes were higher than ever. The human colonies in the sector depended on him, and failure would mean annihilation. "We can't fail this time," Elias whispered to himself. "Not when so many lives are at stake." The AI responded with calm pulses, conveying understanding, readiness, and trust. Elias had grown to rely on this strange, sentient machine, and now their bond would be tested to the limit. As they approached the fleet, Elias studied their formation. The ships were organized with military precision, shields aligned, weapons ready, but human ingenuity had proven time and again that even perfect discipline could be broken by unpredictability, creativity, and courage. Elias began to formulate a plan, one that relied not on raw firepower, but on strategy and improvisation. He activated the warship's cloaking system and projected multiple energy signatures to confuse enemy sensors. The alien fleet adjusted, but Elias anticipated their movements, predicting their responses using a combination of instinct and careful observation. The warship moved like a predator, silent, precise, and deadly. Then Elias deployed the drones, hundreds of them, into the fleet. They acted independently but followed his guidance. Some created false signals. Others carried energy charges designed to disable enemy ships without destroying them completely. The fleet commander, a massive ship at the center, became frustrated, overreacting to the chaotic movements. Its smaller vessels faltered, giving Elias the opening he needed. He gritted his teeth, focusing on every calculation and instinct. This battle was unlike any before. Mistakes could mean total destruction. Yet he had learned to adapt, to improvise, to think creatively when faced with situations beyond pure logic. Humanity had a unique edge, and he intended to use it. Energy beams streaked across the void, and the warship dodged with uncanny precision, guided by both human intuition and alien AI calculations. Elias directed energy pulses at critical points in the enemy fleet, using the environment, asteroid belts, gravity wells, and radiation fields to amplify the effect. One by one, ships were disabled, their energy signatures extinguished, their formations broken. The central ship of the fleet launched a concentrated strike at the warship, a beam so powerful it could have shattered planets. Elias reacted instantly. He tilted the ship, angling the beam against an asteroid cluster to deflect it. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring, but they survived. He countered immediately, directing a pulse through the asteroid field to strike the central ship. The resulting explosion sent fragments ricocheting through the fleet, disabling multiple vessels. Victory was not easy, and the battle raged on for hours. Elias's body screamed with exhaustion, but his mind remained clear. He trusted the AI, and it trusted him. Together, they exploited weaknesses, adapted to enemy maneuvers, and turned the fleet's own strategies against them. Finally, the tide turned. The central ship faltered, its shields failing under constant pressure and unpredictable attacks. The remaining vessels, seeing their commander's vulnerability, began to retreat, scattering across the star system. Elias did not pursue recklessly. Instead, he consolidated their advantage, ensuring the fleet could not regroup and threaten the human colonies again. When the last of the alien ships disappeared into the void, Elias sank into the cockpit chair, breathing heavily. The warship pulsed softly around him, a quiet acknowledgement of the victory. He had done it. Against overwhelming odds, humanity had prevailed, not because of raw strength, but because of ingenuity, courage, and determination. The AI projected an image into his mind, symbols he had come to understand as gratitude. It had learned from him, adapted to him, and now recognized humanity as a species capable of creativity, resilience, and leadership. Elias felt a strange pride. Humanity had always faced adversity, always been underestimated, yet time and again, they had risen to meet impossible challenges. He looked out at the stars, reflecting on the journey that had begun on the barren deserts of Tarkus. He had been a wounded survivor, stumbling into ancient ruins. He had awakened a warship of unimaginable power, faced scouts and fleets, and learned to command it with skill and courage. Now he had proven that even a single human, guided by determination and creativity, could change the fate of entire civilizations. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown dangers, ancient powers, and civilizations yet to be discovered. The warship was a tool, a powerful ally, but it was also a responsibility. Humanity had been given an opportunity to step onto the galactic stage, to show that even a young species could wield power wisely and heroically. He set a course for the nearest human colony, not just to deliver news of victory, but to establish contact, to ensure humanity would be ready for whatever challenges awaited them. The warship responded instantly, engines flaring silently as they accelerated through space. It was fast, efficient, and alive, but it was no substitute for human initiative. Elias' decisions, instincts, and courage were the true driving force. As the first human worlds came into view, Elias felt a swell of hope. The colonists below had no idea of the battle that had just been fought, of the fleets that had threatened them, or of the human ingenuity that had saved their lives. They would perhaps never fully understand how a single wounded human had stood against a galactic threat and prevailed. And yet Elias knew the truth. Humanity had proved itself once again. Creativity, courage, and determination, qualities that no machine or alien calculation could fully replicate, had turned the impossible into victory. That was the legacy he would carry, the proof that even a fragile, young species could rise to greatness when tested. The warship pulsed around him, its energy flowing like a heartbeat, alive yet obedient, a testament to the bond that had formed between human and machine. Elias smiled despite his pain and exhaustion. They had done it. Together they had changed the course of the galaxy. He looked toward the stars ahead. The universe was vast, and there would be other fleets, other threats, and other challenges. But Elias Kane was no longer just a survivor. He was a human, a species capable of shaping its destiny through courage, ingenuity, and resilience. And with the warship at his command, he was ready to face whatever came next. The stars stretched endlessly, silent and watchful. And in that silence, Elias Kane felt a surge of determination. Humanity had awakened not just power, but purpose. The galaxy had underestimated them for too long. From the deserts of Tarkus to the infinite expanse of space, humans would no longer be overlooked. And somewhere deep within the warship, the AI pulsed softly, a quiet affirmation of what it had learned. Humanity was extraordinary, unpredictable and unstoppable when driven by courage and ingenuity. Together, human and machine would explore, defend, and conquer challenges that no one had dared to imagine. Elias Kane pressed a hand against the console, feeling the pulse of the warship echo with his own heartbeat. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in centuries he felt the galaxy itself was within reach. Humanity's spark had ignited, and its light would shine across the stars. Unyielding and brilliant, the adventure that began with a crash, a stumble, and a discovery in ancient ruins had transformed him and humanity forever. The warship hummed around him, alive, waiting ready, and Elias Kane, wounded yet unbroken, stared at the endless expanse of space and smiled. The galaxy had learned one lesson that it would never forget. Humans were not to be underestimated.